But we begin tonight with the desperation of a man facing a ticking clock. With each tick and each talk, two thoughts weigh on this man's mind: staying out of prison and not becoming destitute and losing all of his properties. Donald Trump has 5 days left to come up with the $454 million bond for his New York civil fraud judgment, or New York Attorney General Letitia James can start seizing the very properties that Trump has used to portray himself as a wealthy and successful businessman, the crux of what elevated him to the White House. A.G. James wrote in a filing today that an appellate court should disregard Trump's claims that posting the full bond is a practical impossibility and hitting Trump where it hurts, continuing that if Trump has been unable to get a company to accept his properties as collateral for a bond, it may be because using Trump's real estate will generally need a property appraisal, and his holdings are not nearly as valuable as defendants claim. CNN reports that Trump is in panic mode as the deadline approaches. That's according to multiple sources familiar with his addled-brained thinking. Quote, Trump's team has sought out wealthy supporters and weighed what assets could be sold, and fast. The presumptive Republican presidential nominee himself has become increasingly concerned about the optics the March 25th deadline could present, especially the prospect that someone whose identity has long been tied to his wealth would confront financial crisis. Perhaps included in that Trump team are some right-wing talk radio and Fox cable hosts, because there was Mark Levin tweeting out an SOS calling it an outrage that no Republican multi-billionaires are offering to lend Trump $500 million. And then there was Trump's former White House chief economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, begging Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary on live television to pony up the money.
I was wondering, if he can't get to the Supreme Court, will you loan him the $460 million?
You know,
just to help, in order to protect America's name. Think of it that way.
To get the bond, he was able to get the $90+ million from Chubb.
Yeah.
I don't know of a bond more than $90 million. I don't recall one.
Yeah.
And so you need cash to back up the bond insurance.
Sorry, Donald. Looks like no deal there. Even Elon Musk, one of the world's richest people who doesn't seem to be too concerned with throwing his money away, has said he would not be willing to add any amount to the cause.
Are you going to loan him money to help pay his bills?
No.
Not at all. Pay his legal bills?
I'm not paying his legal bills in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you'd think that maybe Trump's son-in-law, Jared, who obtained a $2 billion investment from Saudi Arabia, might be willing to help out his dear old father-in-law. But he seems preoccupied by buying real estate all over Eastern Europe and musing about the valuable waterfront property in decimated Gaza. Stay classy, Jared. But the reality is that whoever ultimately steps up and gives Trump the money effectively owns him. And if that person truly believes Trump will win in November, that would mean they would have purchased the president of the United States, the most powerful person in the world. If you're a Saudi prince or a Russian oligarch or Vladimir Putin himself, what could make for a more tantalizing prospect? And that reality is why this situation could quickly become a major national security threat.
In other words, who is he beholden to? Whether, it's a foreign person, whether it's an American person, doesn't really matter. That is something that the electorate would have a keen interest in knowing, because, to be somewhat snarky about it, if it is coming from another person, then the former president and candidate for office might have 464 million reasons to do what that person wants. And so that issue of is he beholden to somebody is going to become, quite salient as a political matter.
And who knows how far Trump would be willing to go for the person pulling his strings. If Putin were to front the money and Trump were to win the presidency, what happens if Putin tells Trump to, say, pull the U.S. out of NATO? Of course, the investment to pay off, Trump has to actually win in November. And the problem is that things don't seem to be going too well on that front right now. As the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, there have still been a significant number of Republican voters in state primaries who are not willing to support Donald Trump. His fundraising hauls are getting smaller from big and small donors alike, while his campaign's fundraising texts are becoming more frequent and more desperate. And even though he installed his own daughter-in-law to run the RNC, they too are strapped for cash. Beyond that, it's not like Trump is growing his base. His attempts to court the black vote by hawking overpriced gold sneakers is a bust. Forget counting on getting more women voters as he signals his support for a 15-week national abortion ban. And as his base gets smaller, the worse it is for him. Which brings us back to the desperation of a man facing this most unwelcome sound. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. Joining me now is presidential historian Douglas Brinkley, professor of history at Rice University, David Cay Johnston, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and founder of DCReport.org, and Catherine Christian, former Manhattan assistant district attorney and MSNBC legal analyst. Thank you all for being here. I want to go right down the middle to David Cay Johnston because let's just get a sense of what Trump has. We're going to put this up. This is an exhaustive list, actually, of what he actually owns. People think he owns hundreds and hundreds of things, but it's really this stuff. Trump Park Avenue, Trump Tower, New York, 40 Wall Street, Seven Springs, Westchester. There's stuff including Turnberry overseas in Scotland, you know, in Aberdeen, Scotland, 2 golf courses there. What has he actually got, and how quick could he sell it, David?
Well, at this point, anybody who would be a buyer knows they've got enormous leverage, and these would be fire sale prices. In addition, Donald undoubtedly has covenants in the loans on other properties that require him to maintain a certain level of cash, that don't allow him to encumber or sell properties without approvals of some kind. You know, if you have a mortgage on your home, even if you only owe 20% of the value of the house, and you want to get a HELOC, a home equity loan, or a second mortgage, if the first lender says no, you can't get it. And that's part of the problem that Donald is in.
And the other problem, of course, Douglas Brinkley here at the table, is that whoever buys it, you know, as I said, if they give him the money or they loan it to him, let me let you listen to Alina Habba. This is one of his lawyers. And she has asked, this is one of his attorneys, if Donald Trump is trying to take money from a foreign country to try to pay this bill. Here she is.
Is there any effort on the part of your team to secure this money through another country, Saudi Arabia or Russia, as Joy Behar seems to think?
Well, there's rules and regulations that are public. I can't speak about strategy.
Douglas, that's not a no.
That's not a no. Donald Trump's going to do anything he can to either slip out of this or find somebody to flip the bill for him. But $454 billion.
And counting.
And $1 million counting. That is just a hard amount of money to find. No bank wanted to do it. No financial service. No human. There may be Russian oligarchs. There may be people that are going to vote for Trump that are rich. But that's just throwing money into the wind. So Monday is a historic day. Letitia James is going down as this incredibly historic figure,
Indeed.
Clarence Darrow of our time.
Yeah.
And she's the one who seems to have held him accountable, which is only right, because he made his so-called fortune in New York. He did his scams and fraudulent acts in New York. And it may be New York that gets his comeuppance here come Monday.
Is there an historical sort of precedence for this? I mean, we do know J.P. Morgan at one point bailed out the U.S. government. I can't think of any other sort of precedent for this at all, of essentially an individual or group of individuals being able to essentially own the president of the United States.
Yeah, well, you know, we used to talk about worries that the Lincoln bedroom was for sale in the White House.
Remember that?
Some
Quaint times.
Quaint.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the White House is for Donald Trump's stamp. I get in, you'll be my friend. So we all have to keep eyes on Saudi Arabia. We have to keep eyes on Russian oligarchs. We have to look where this money's coming from in case he does become the next president. We can't be held hostage to the loaner.
Catherine, can you just walk us through kind of how this would work? Because, you know, is this a matter of Letitia James with a giant padlock going up to Trump Tower or these buildings and locking Donald Trump out? Like, how would she actually obtain, or how would the state of New York obtain these properties?
Well, there's a process. On Monday, assuming that the New York Appellate Division does not grant a stay of enforcement of the judgment, Attorney General James, she's not ceding any ground, will have her lawyers go to court. You have to go to court. This is not going to happen overnight. And then you start requesting, finding. He has to tell us where his liquid assets are. He, meaning Donald Trump. Start the process of seizing those assets. Start the process of seizing property, putting liens on properties. So that the process, assuming he doesn't come up with the bond or the money, will start on Monday. But it's a long process that will start because it's a legal process and everything's going to be, for the Attorney General's half, at least above board.
Did you witness the president commit a crime? Is it your testimony today?
Yes.
And what crime have you witnessed?
How much time do I have to go through it?
It is simple. You name the crime. Did you watch him steal something?
Corruption statutes, RICO and conspiracy.
What is it? Excuse me, sir. RICO is not a crime. It is a category. What is the
It's a category of crimes that you're then charged
You
under
have charges.
A long 100.
You have charges. Sir, please
want me to name the exact statute under RICO?
Yes.
Well, that about sums up today's chaotic and embarrassing impeachment inquiry hearing on Capitol Hill. House Republicans are still trying to salvage their flailing case to impeach President Biden for something, even though they have neither evidence nor facts nor reliable witnesses. But the show must go on. It's all part of the party's desperate attempt to tarnish Biden before the November election, probably because they're nervous about their own guy's chances. And they should be. Yesterday, voters show that while Trump still holds dominance over the Republican Party in the primaries, he also presents some pretty glaring red flags when it comes to the general election. In Florida, for instance, Trump received 81% of the vote, while Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley received just under 20% combined, despite the fact that they both dropped out of the race. To compare, Trump won nearly 94% of the Florida primary vote in 2020. While in Ohio, the Trump-backed Senate candidate, Bernie Moreno, won the Republican nomination over normie candidate Matt Dolan, which, if history is any indication, might be better news for Democrats than it is for Republicans. We've seen this before. Trump drags these MAGA weirdos over the finish line in the primaries, and they only wind up helping Democrats win in the general. I mean, don't take it from me. Take it from non-Senators Blake Masters, Herschel Walker, and Mehmet Oz. Joining me now is David Jolly, former Republican congressman from Florida and MSNBC political analyst. David, you know, yesterday, a source of mine from Ohio, I asked which candidate were they concerned about facing in the United States Senate. And they said basically the other two, other than Moreno, the one that they were enthusiastic about winning was Moreno, because this person who's like been in politics in Ohio, they were like, that's the one that we want, the Sherrod Brown team wants. Does Donald Trump work for Joe Biden secretly? Is he trying to elect Joe Biden?
Yeah, Joy, Republicans keep learning all the wrong lessons. I mean, look, you can look at the past several cycles, and even Democrats would say Ohio is kind of slipping away from them. Until last night, when all of a sudden Republicans and Donald Trump say, hey, why don't we run Moreno against the very popular Democratic incumbent in Sherrod Brown and give Sherrod Brown a chance not just of holding Ohio, but holding the Senate for Democrats. And you're exactly right. I mean, all the wrong lessons are, look at Herschel Walker in Georgia, a pickup they should have had in 22. Look at Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, one they could have had. And in Ohio, where they nominated J.D. Vance against Tim Ryan, J.D. Vance underperformed other statewide Republicans by about 20 points. Mike DeWine 2 years ago actually won, I think, by about 25 points. Other statewide candidates in the high teens. J.D. Vance, with his level of Trumpian crazy, just bested Tim Ryan by 6. So Donald Trump and Republicans have decided, hey, let's go into November with a whole shoebox full of crazy, see if we can lose some races we otherwise should have won, and hand the United States Senate back to the Democrats.
I mean, Kari Lake in Arizona? Does this make any sense? Okay. Plan B.
Hey, you know what we're missing, Joy?
Yeah.
You'll remember. Here's what we're missing from Republicans this cycle. I am not a witch. You remember that? You remember the Delaware race? At some point, a candidate this cycle will say, I'm not a witch.
Maybe they should run a witch. It might actually be, then they could like maybe, use them like sorcery to get to try to win. The other plan B, impeach Joe Biden. But except for that, all their witnesses are like, okay, we can't impeach Joe Biden. Here's Lev Parnas, who literally was one of the people who invented the scam, pretend, Biden crimes. Here's Lev Parnas testifying in Capitol Hill.
Everyone involved knew they were sharing lies. From Trump and Giuliani's shadow diplomacy, through my missions to Ukraine and elsewhere, to members of a Bill T team, a group convened for the sole purpose of investigating and damaging the Bidens. Everything was for the ultimate benefit of Donald Trump and thereby Vladimir Putin. Because the team's investigations were centered around Biden and Ukraine, I was designated the point person in every matter they pursued. That is how I know with certainty that these Biden stories are untrue then and are untrue now.
He mentions Vladimir Putin. In addition to that crap show today, 9 House Republicans, the 9 you probably expect, voted against a resolution condemning the Russian abduction of Ukrainian children, David. They all were for Biden. They're all trying to get Biden elected. What is happening? How are you against the abduction of children? What is happening?
There is no ideological justification for that vote. I don't know if it's just like owning the libs, or I'm trying to make the news, or I'm trying to best Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's really odd to see Republicans vote like that. But I think what is not odd and what deserves further investigation is really this alliance with Putin's Russia. Because if Democrats were in control of the House right now, the real investigation that would be going on is how House Republican members have accepted and coordinated information with a known Russian asset who's now been charged by our Department of Justice. That now is at the root of this entire Hunter Biden investigation. And recall, it's not just about Hunter Biden now. The Russian asset that was proffering this story, and when we saw Giuliani peddling it, everything else that was going on, this is at the root of Donald Trump's very first impeachment. Right, when he was actually using the official powers of the White House to try to create this anti-Biden narrative. All that Republicans have left is Hunter Biden clearly went into business because his last name is Biden and attracted some clients. Well, if that's illegal in Washington, D.C., half the Republican Congress would be out of work.
Everybody has to go to work. And then lastly, putting North Carolina back in play. Between the North Carolina governor nominee, who says he likes the days when women couldn't vote, is now comparing Planned Parenthood, man with saggy pants, and the Klan. He says those are all the same thing. Plus, you've got the North Carolina Public Schools chief nominee who's calling for the execution of President Obama and suggested killing Joe Biden. That's their candidates in North Carolina.
Yeah. Joy, wild and crazy Republican candidates up and down the ballot. But I think if you look at this incrementally, right, you take in North Carolina that maybe Democrats need to make up about 6 points to win this. Now they've been gifted candidates that'll hand them 3 or 4 points right there. How do they make up the difference? This is a state where now the Dobbs decision really comes into play. Yes. Because not only are soft Republican candidates looking at their own, or soft Republican voters looking at their own candidates saying, no, I just can't do this. They're also being reminded that, wait a minute, this is the party that gave us Dobbs. This is a very good shot for Democrats in North Carolina.
And even in Maryland, where they're running somebody who's not for abortion rights, but he's supposed to be a normie, but he's also not for abortion rights. Even all of these candidates. David Jolly, thank you very much.